this is a diagnosis that not only affects the individual, but fundamentally turns a family upside down. And I don't say that in regards to diminishing any other type of diagnosis, whether it be cancer or other, but this is like you said, it is for you, it was a decade. It was over a decade.
Yeah.
And I think when it came down to it is I'd found two Facebook groups. Children of Frontotemporal Dementia was an amazing group, as well as I think it was just called Frontal Lobe Dementia. So there are two Facebook groups that I had joined pretty early on, and I can't tell you how, even though these are people that I didn't necessarily know, just knowing that I wasn't alone, knowing that the crazy things that was going on in my life. And I mean, there was several times where we had to have the police at our house because things just got completely chaotic, and she would try to drive off in cars, and to see that this was something another family was going through. I don't know how to put it into words, but just to know that you're not alone and have the empathy to know, like, my heart goes out for these families so much, because I know how hard it can be. And to know that you're not alone, and to know that you can even like comment on someone's, status about it, I think was helpful in some capacities.
Yeah, I feel like anything you can do to like help that burden of isolation is huge, because I feel like it's super, no one likes to talk about things like dementia and, watching your parent kind of wither away, or losing, like, these people losing the essence of who they are. Like, those are not easy things to talk about. So I think if you're able to connect and find someone else who maybe like you, our stories are different, yet I feel like there's this just kind of shared empathy of understanding, like, oh, this person gets it. Like, this person has been in not maybe the same exact pair of shoes, maybe different size, maybe different color, but like, the same brand, the same model. And I think like finding that, like meeting people for me that were in similar situations was monumentally like life-changing. I was like, oh, I didn't know that I needed these people as much as I needed to be around them. Some of them I like never met in person, only ever met them on Zoom. Through my volunteer work that I did with AFTD, I was able to meet like a whole host of other people like me who were children of parents who had a diagnosis. Some I was able to work with, some I'm like so happy to call my dear friends now, like I can text them when I need, and some of them were at my mom's funeral. Like, it's just, those are things that I will be forever, ever grateful for, and that I never knew that I needed, right? Like, whoever thought I'd be excited to like go to an AFTD conference and learn more about this dementia and talk to people about the fact that like my mom was dying or had to die, but like that I go in this kind of very comforting space to be in, because those people understand. So I think caring for caregivers is super important. And I think being able to give caregivers the opportunity to connect with other caregivers is really important. And that being said, everybody's different, right? So everybody needs something different. Some people are going to want a big base of support. Some people are going to need one or two or three people. And I think it doesn't matter what that support looks like, what it is for you, but I think kind of formulating some type of not care plan, but just support network is the best way that you can care for caregivers. I also think, like, I don't know how this felt for you, but I think when people did things for me without me asking, or did things for our family without us asking, I think those were the things that were most cherished. Yeah. And it wasn't necessarily like, that maybe it was that they brought a meal, or like they offered to take my mom out for an hour, like those kinds of things. Sometimes it was just that they like checked in,
Yes.
and that they were like,
how are you doing? It's couldn't agree more. And I think I had a lot of friends, because, I'm not from North Carolina. My mom had moved down here. And so, I mean, it was it was just us and my husband and I, and I'm trying to keep, a new marriage afloat and understand what's going on in these circumstances. And so it was, finding people. I mean, I had girlfriends here that would go and stay with my mom if I was, trying to go out of town for, to have a time away with my husband or go out to dinner, or, sometimes my mom just got sick of me. And
Yeah.
I had friends that would show up and bring her meals. And, I think there's a lot to that. And I think that, it's kind of this secret society of hell sometimes that we get into, and this secret club that we never wanted to be a part of. And I say secret because it still has this stigma, like you said, where it's like dementia, or like, anything to do with mental health. And I remember there was a few times that I had posted something about her diagnosis, and rather than, publicly saying anything or commenting, people would privately message me and be like, hey, my mom is going through the same thing. Like, what's up? And that's fine. If you want to keep it private, that's fine. But
Yeah.
it also makes me realize that we have such a stigma about this, where we can't hide from this anymore. Families can't hide from this. Families need support, because these types of diagnoses can rip families apart. And at the same time, all you try to do is your very best for your loved one. And not everyone is going to accept the route that you go, because not everyone is sitting right in your shoes or standing or walking in your shoes. Not everyone is showing up to do the work. And it's amazing how people on the outside can have a judgment on something that they know nothing about and want nothing to do with.
Mm-hmm.
And so finding your people that show up and support you in this journey is key. I'll switch gears a little bit, because I think as individuals, we also have to place personal accountability and even some boundaries sometimes, because it takes a toll on us mentally, emotionally, and physically.
Yeah, and I think you really have to do best what you can do to protect yourself. And I think, it can be different for different people. All the circumstances are different. I wrote a whole chapter for a book called What If It's Not Alzheimer's, on self-care for caregivers. And I think you really kind of have to craft your toolbox, right? Your toolbox might be simple things that you like figure out how to do in the moment. Your toolbox might mean that you have access to be able to put someone in respite care and go away for a week and come back, right? Your access might be that you get to go for a walk for 5 minutes down the block while, your next door neighbor sits in your house with your loved one for 5 minutes. Like, everybody's thing is going to be different. And so I think just kind of figuring out how you can craft it best for yourself is important, and remembering that like you're doing the best that you can.
Right.
I always remember saying to my dad, like, we have to do whatever we can to take care of mom in the best way that we can, but also like I don't need to lose two parents right now, right? Like I have one parent who is healthy, who is well, so like I want to do what's best to take care of my mom, yes, but like what's best to take care of my parent who is still here, so that parent can thrive, so that like our family doesn't disappear because that happens. My dad had a heart attack in the middle of all of this and had to have quintuple bypass surgery. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, oh my God, like this is like, here we go. Like, this is not just about my mom. Like, we need to take care of my dad. Like, this is important. This person needs to stay stable. I don't want to lose two people. I need to keep one, so I think you have to, and it's hard. And I don't think there's any right decision, right? I think it's just what you're able to do with where you are and what you're able to emotionally deal with and what your finances give you. Like, I think there's just, and it's hard. There's no right or wrong way.
There's no right or wrong way. And you're right. I mean, it's like, it was kind of where I looked at too, is, my dad was 87 at that, closer to when my mom had passed away. And yeah, I mean, you have to focus on what is still around, what is still the good in your life. And, I had to set clear boundaries, because I'm like, I can't lose my marriage and neglect my marriage, because I mean, that is my future. And I can only do so much. I can only my mental capacity and anyone's mental capacity can only do so much. And I think with how much of a weight this can be on the caregivers, because my mom never thought anything was wrong. She was just going about her day like it was, everything she was doing was completely fine, completely normal, outburst normal. And it's I think I had another point that I wanted to bring up about caregivers too, because self-care, you can't consume like these bubble baths are not going to do too much. I mean, yeah, it helped a little bit after a stressful day, or if I had
Sure.
she would get up at 4 a.m. and be calling me endlessly in the middle of the night. And sleep was something that I realized after the fact that I had neglected a lot too. And like you said, if you have it within your toolbox to have respite care or a friend that can go and have lunch with them, I mean, do use it, use those tools, use those resources. Yeah, I think I want to also include, I'll have a link in the description of this for both of those Facebook groups for folks to join, so those Facebook forums. And then I'd love to get a link for the Self-Care for Caregivers, the book that you had mentioned.
Yeah, there's a book, and I also did a webinar for AFTD in the middle of the pandemic, and we can post that link too, because that's a lot of that content, but in video format as opposed to in a book.
Perfect. The more resources that we can get out there, I think
the more resources, the more you can do, the better off. Not that you can change the situation, but just the more you have at your disposal, hopefully the more you can be a little bit more supported in your journey. Yeah.
The one other thing I wanted to talk about that came up in my mind with caregiving is expectations. I think that was something I struggled with for a very long time. We kind of mentioned how it's like you're slowly losing this person and you have this glimpse of who they were and then now where they're at. The one thing I really struggled with sometimes was also accepting what was going on. And it's hard because I remember there was Christmas where I was like, she's going to come over, we're going to make pierogies and we're going to, have this big Polish Christmas and it's going to be great. And we're going to open presents and all these things. And I'm like, I'm a 32-year-old adult. Okay. Like, and when it didn't happen as that, and when we had another blow up, when we had more chaos, and I'm sitting Christmas morning in tears because my mom is saying mean things to me. It's like, but you knew better. And it was
hard. You can say that to yourself now, right? Like hindsight is always 20/20, but like you don't always know when you're in it. So it's like anything you can do that like can give yourself just a tidbit of space, but also like you said earlier, right? Like to remember that they are not their behavior.
Right.
It's just so hard in the moment because I think you're grieving and you want that person to be themselves, but they're not. And so, and I think it goes back to your point that you said earlier to just try and like remember the things that are good and like, make a new kind of crazy situation different maybe than you ever wanted it to be. But like, what is it? Like, what's really important,
Yeah.
Did I ever think that I would spend like a fake Christmas in my mom's memory care unit, like 3 weeks before Christmas and like bring in a little tree and decorate? Like, no, I never. Christmas was my mom's absolute favorite. Like hands. I mean, she was like a Christmas fanatic. So like to know that like that no longer existed was really heartbreaking, and that we like did it in a like that. It was so hard. It was weird, but yeah, we did it. And I was like, okay, this is what, and then we went out for milkshakes after. She would have loved that. But like, that's what we did. Like, that's what we had to do, like, so that
best of it.
Yeah. To make the best of it. And it's hard. It's really hard to do it. But I think, you kind of, like you said, you have to give yourself that space to be like, okay, this is going to be different. But yeah, expectations, like knowing that you can't expect that person is going to be the same that they were before, and that you have to constantly kind of remind yourself that their behaviors or their whatever they're showing you is not who they are. That's not what they are, right? So it's like you have to go back and like remember, and it's hard when you're in it to remember what they were.
It's so hard when you're in it to remember. It's so hard. I mean,
I
like I've been a yoga teacher. I've practiced mindfulness and like again, I'm like, I'm an adult. I should know better in these moments. And then it comes up and it doesn't go as you planned. And then I'm the one left disappointed because of my own expectations that I placed on somebody else that I know can't control their own. And it's, yeah, I think that if that was, another bit of advice that I'd give for the caregivers of loved ones is go easy on yourselves.
Yeah, go easy on yourselves. This is a hard, hard road.
Be gentle, and if you have the means to seek out therapy or talk to a counselor, please, 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 I could not advocate for that enough.
Yeah, I don't think I would have like survived,
No.
like it was a huge, huge thing for me. It was really hard to do and really hard to go. And there were days I didn't want to go. I didn't want to talk to my therapist. I was like, I want to go to yoga instead of going to therapy.
Oh,
But like even now, I still have a relationship. I don't go as often, but like
yeah.
still have a therapist that I still talk to. And I can't, like it's just so, so, so important.
Yeah. Which, okay, on a lighter note, kind of funny, my therapist that I had seen for the last 5 years, her name's Dottie, and she was with me throughout this entire process, before the process even, because, my mom and I had a very different relationship anyways. And so I'd started with her and she messages me. She's like, yeah, so I'm leaving and I can recommend you to somebody else here. And I'm like, you know too much. You're not wait, I've been with my therapist for 5 years. You don't just tell me you're going to another place. And,
Right.
like, no. You are taking me with you. You're never retiring. I will be with you till the end. Like,
It's
no,
hard. Yeah.
it
No,
is. It is.
yeah.
So
And there is support out there.
what's that?
I said there is other support out there. Like if you
Right.
can't get a therapist or you don't have access, to that type of psychotherapy and things like that, there
Yeah.
are support groups. There are things that are free. There are things that are accessible for
Mhm.
caregivers. So I think as much as you can to try and like seek it out is super important.